the veteran waitress. A story of scars, sacrifice, and standing up. Picture this for a second. You're at work, just trying to make it through another shift, when someone decides to publicly tear you apart. They mock your appearance, call you disgusting, and demand you be hidden away from decent society. Now imagine those scars. They're mocking. You earned them dragging wounded soldiers out of a burning vehicle in Afghanistan. How would that feel? This is exactly what happened one Tuesday morning in a quiet diner. And what unfolded next will absolutely floor you. Because sometimes, just when you think humanity has hit rock bottom, someone steps up and reminds you what real courage looks like. This story involves a 68-year-old veteran who'd been sitting silently for months. A waitress with scars that told a story most people would never understand. And one cruel businessman who had no idea what he was about to unleash. Grab your coffee. Settle in, because what I'm about to share with you is going to hit different. Let me set the scene. Murphy's Diner in Millbrook, a small town where everybody knows everybody's business. Or at least they think they do. Every Tuesday morning like clockwork, this older gentleman named Harold Chun sits in the same corner booth, silver hair buzzed military short, back straight as an arrow despite pushing 70. He sips his black coffee, tips generously, and minds his own business. To the locals, Harold S., just a quiet retired postal worker who moved to town 5 years back after losing his wife. Nice enough guy. Keeps to himself. Nothing special. But here's the thing about assumptions. They're usually dead wrong. Nobody noticed the faded anchor tattoo on his forearm. Nobody paid attention to how his eyes swept every room like he was mapping exit routes. Nobody knew about the medals collecting dust in his bedroom drawer. Harold Chun wasn't just some postal worker. The man served 20 years as a Marine. 3 tours. The last one in Lebanon back in '83. Where he watched brothers in arms die for something bigger than themselves. That kind of experience doesn't just fade away because you hang up the uniform. It stays with you, changes you, teaches you that honor isn't about medals or parades. It's about standing up when everyone else stays seated. After his service, Harold came home and built a quiet life with his wife Margaret. They raised kids, ran a hardware store, helped struggling vets find work when nobody else would. Margaret knew who he really was. She saw how he'd slip cash to military families when they couldn't afford groceries. How he'd spend hours helping veterans navigate the VA system. When cancer took her 3 years ago, Harold moved to Millbrook, hoping to escape the memories. But some things follow you wherever you go, like the instinct to protect people who've worn the uniform. Now, let me introduce you to Maria Santos. She's been working at Murphy's for 8 months, hustling through breakfast rushes and double shifts, always wearing long sleeves. Even in the summer heat. Those sleeves hide burn scars running from her wrists up to her elbows. Scars that most customers never see and definitely don't ask about. Maria needs this job desperately. Every penny goes toward her mother's medical bills. She can't afford to make waves or draw attention to herself. But here's what nobody at that diner knows. That woman pouring your coffee. She's got a small eagle tattoo on her forearm. And if you know anything about military ink, you'd recognize that symbol instantly. It's the mark of the 101st Airborne Division. The Screaming Eagles. That tiny tattoo means Maria jumped out of perfectly good airplanes into hostile territory, that she faced dangers most people can't even comprehend. On this particular Tuesday, everything changes. The breakfast rush is in full swing. Business types in expensive suits, construction workers, grabbing quick bites, retirees, lingering over coffee. Maria's moving between tables, refilling cups, ducking orders, staying invisible the way service workers learn to do. She approaches a table of businessmen, coffee pot in hand. One of them, this loud guy in a suit that probably costs more than Maria makes in a month, signals for a refill. Maria leans sin topor. Her sleeve slides up just a fraction, and this guy sees her scars. What happens next is the kind of cruelty that makes your blood boil. This businessman, with his friends watching, decides to make a comment, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Ma'am, maybe you should cover those ugly scars before serving food. You're making customers lose their appetite." The entire restaurant goes silent. You could hear a pin drop. Maria freezes mid-pour, her weathered hands starting to shake. Her face flushes with shame as she stammers an apology and tries to back away. But this guy isn't done. Oh no. He's just getting started. He calls her back, makes her stand there while he continues his performance for the whole restaurant. Says wounded people have no business working in food service. That it's unprofessional and disgusting. He actually demands to speak to the manager about their hiring standards. His buddies are laughing. Other customers are staring. And Maria just stands there, taking it. Because what choice does she have? She needs this job. She needs every dollar. From his corner booth, Harold sees everything. He watches Maria's shoulders shake as she fights back tears. He sees the other customers looking away, too uncomfortable to intervene, but not uncomfortable enough to actually do something. And then Harold notices something that businessmen completely missed. That little eagle tattoo on Maria's forearm, partially hidden by her scars. Harold's coffee cup starts trembling in his hands. Memories come flooding back. Other young soldiers who came home changed. Brothers who returned from combat zones, marked in ways both visible and invisible. The businessman's words hit Harold like physical blows because he's heard them before, directed at his own Marine buddies who sacrificed everything and got treated like damaged goods when they came home. That ego tattoo tells a story this businessman will never understand. Harold knows what it means. The 101st Airborne, that woman jumped into combat, faced enemy fire, put her life on the line. And those scars, they're not just injuries. They were proof of the kind of sacrifice that lets entitled businessmen sit safely in diners making cruel jokes. The rage building in Harold's chest is familiar. It's the same anger he felt watching Vietnam vets get forgotten, when politicians sent kids to war, then refused to fund their care when they returned broken. Harold spent 40 years watching fellow veterans struggle in silence, accepting treatment no human being should endure. Not today. Not on his watch. The businessman gets bolder. Start work in the room, making jokes about Maria's appearance. Suggest the diner should hire prettier waitresses who won't scare off customers. A few people actually nod along, swept up in his performance. Maria retreats to the kitchen. Through the service window, Harold can see her, crying, wiping her eyes with a dish towel while a young cook tries helplessly to comfort her. Then the manager comes out, a woman named Beth. Harold watches, hoping she'll do the right thing. Defend her employee. Stand up to this bully. But no. Beth apologizes to the businessman. Actually apologizes to him. Promises to discuss appearance standards with her staff. That's when Harold feels his restraint snap. He's watched too many good soldiers get thrown away by people who never risked a damn thing for their country. The businessman orders another coffee, practically preening with satisfaction. He doesn't notice Harold standing up, doesn't see him approaching with those slow, deliberate steps that every veteran recognizes. The walk of a man who's made a decision. The diner gets quieter. Other customers sense something shifting in the air. Even the businessman's friends look nervous as Harold stops beside their table. The old Marine's face is calm, but his eyes are burning with 40 years of suppressed rage. Harold's voice carries authority. The kind you can't fake. He says the businessman seems to have strong opinions about people wounded in service to their country. The guy looks up, annoyed at being interrupted, tries to wave Harold off. But Harold hasn't asked a question. He's making a statement. He points at Maria, who's returned from the kitchen with red-rimmed eyes, but her spine straight. Harold tells this businessman exactly who he's been mocking. That woman is a veteran of the 101st Airborne Division. She jumped into combat zones to protect his right to sit here safely making cruel jokes. The businessman tries to argue, says he doesn't care about military service if it affects his dining experience. Wrong answer. Harold's voice drops to barely a whisper, but somehow it fills the entire restaurant. He explains where Maria's scars came from, pulling wounded soldiers from a burning vehicle in Afghanistan. While this businessman was sleeping safely in his expensive bed, she was risking her life to save fellow Americans. Complete silence falls over the diner. Every eye is on Harold now. A continuous, and his words cut like a knife, describes what it takes to earn airborne wings. The training, the dedication, the courage required. He explains that Maria's small eagle tattoo represents more bravery than this businessman will show in his entire privileged life. Every customer listens as Harold systematically breaks down exactly what kind of person mocks a wounded veteran. The businessman's face goes from red to pale. People start whispering. The entire mood shifts. Harold finishes with a simple statement. If the businessman has a problem with Maria's service, he's welcome to leave, but he will show respect to someone who bled for his freedom, or he'll answer to every veteran in this town. The businessman tries to backtrack, stammers out some weak excuse. But the damage is done. His friends suddenly remember they have places to be. Other customers won't make eye contact with him. Within 10 minutes, his table empties. The restaurant fills with an entirely different energy. Maria approaches Harold's booth with fresh coffee. Her eyes are still wet, but her posture is different now. Proud. She thanks him quietly, tells him she hasn't talked about her service in years because most people don't understand. Harold nods, says he knows exactly what she means. Bet the manager comes over, apologizing for not handling things better. Harold accepts, but makes it crystal clear that Maria deserves better support. By the end of the breakfast shift, 3 customers have left generous tips specifically for Maria. 2 others ask about her service with genuine respect and interest. Word spreads through Millbrook like wildfire. By evening, the diner's getting calls from local veteran groups. The American Legion Post invites Maria to their next meeting. A Vietnam vet stops by just to shake her hand and thank her for her service. The cruel businessman's behavior becomes hot gossip. And trust me, public opinion isn't on his side. Maria's entire demeanor changes over the following days. She starts wearing shorter sleeves, no longer hiding who she is or what she's survived. That eagle tattoo becomes a conversation starter with other vets who recognize the symbol. Her tips increase. She finds herself part of a community she didn't even know existed in this small town. The next Tuesday, Harold returns to his corner booth. But everything's different. Maria greets him with a genuine smile that reaches her eyes. Other customers nod respectfully when she passes. The whole diner feels warmer somehow, more aware of the sacrifices that protect their peaceful lives. As Harold watches Maria work with renewed confidence, he reflects on the power of recognition. Too many veterans hide their service out of fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of misunderstanding. They carry their scars silently, believing they're alone. But when someone stands up and says your sacrifice matters, everything changes. The businessman never returns to Murphy's Diner. Harold doesn't miss him. Some people go through their entire lives never understanding what real courage looks like. They mistake cruelty for strength, mistake ignorance for wisdom. But truth has a way of surfacing, especially when someone with the courage to speak it is paying attention. Maria's story reminds Harold why he served, why Margaret was proud of his service, why the values he learned in the Marines still matter decades later. Honor isn't about parades or medals, gathering dust in drawers. It's about standing up for those who already stood up for everyone else. It's about making sure no veteran faces their battles alone, whether those battles happen in foreign war zones or in a small-town diner on a random Tuesday morning. Because here's the truth most people don't want to face. We all carry scars. Some are visible, etched into our skin for everyone to see. Others are buried deep, invisible wounds that never quite heal. But what defines us isn't the scars we carry. It's how we treat people who wear theirs with honor. It is. Whether we have the courage to speak up when someone who sacrificed everything gets torn down by someone who sacrificed nothing. The next time you see someone with visible scars, with marks of struggle and survival, remember Maria's story. Remember that behind every scar is a story of courage you might never fully understand. Remember that true character isn't measured by smooth skin or perfect appearances. It's measured by the willingness to defend what's right when everyone else stays silent. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about the veterans in your community, then share Italiano. Let it remind people that respect costs nothing, but its absence can cost everything. There are thousands of Marias out there, serving your coffee, bagging your groceries, sitting quietly in the corner. They deserve to be seen. They deserve to be honored for what they gave. And never forget that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stand up and say, "Not today. Not on my watch." That's what real courage looks like. Word count: 2,000. 247 words.